So when we're working with line weights in Revit, it's very specific to, in this case, scale. All right. So you can see the various scales that we have, and these are sort of the various numbers that are tagged to what these mean. And it's interesting that they show them in inches. We're always used to working in millimeters. So in AutoCAD, we always see millimeters. Rhino, we see millimeters. Which relates to the pen, like the rapidiographs. So like 000, 00. I can't remember what those are in millimeters. It's been a while, but this actually, yeah, this is located. If we come here to manage additional settings, we have line weights. And then we have line style, so we can control everything. Let's look at line weights for now because that's probably the most important. Now the interesting thing is here we have 16 model line weights that we have possible. So that's a lot, you know. And one is typically the lightest, 16 being the darkest, and you can see that they change based on scale. Okay, and at some point you get to a certain size and they don't change much. So as we adjust the scale factor of the view, or the view scale, the line weights adjust in respect to how they've been set up in this sort of matrix. All right, and we can come in and customize these things. All right, and we can add. We can definitely come here and add new ones and new scales that aren't here. Okay, and customize these. So how does that relate to this? Well, these numbers are what's being referenced ultimately in the object styles. Okay. Typically, they're actually set fairly well, in the sense that you probably don't have to manipulate the sizes here that much. It's more about picking different model lines. But if you were someone setting up, your own sort of standards, like you might set up annotation standards, you'd probably spend a day testing line weights, especially for a project that you're working on that you might use for a whole, or use again and so forth. Okay, and this is for model lines. We also have for perspective. So we have very specific for perspective, which are really, scaleless, and then also annotations, which are sort of, one-to-one per se, right? So that's sort of understanding what's being read. So what does that mean when we show a number? If we go to object styles, which is located here, what we get here are all the different objects and how they're being seen, if they're going to be cut, or if they're going to be projected. So in this case, we're working with walls. I have a wall drawn. If I come to wall, I have two different line weights. I have projected and then cut. So cut is basically if the wall is being cut, or if the wall is maybe being projected in the sense it's not being cut, it's just being projected to the plane, as if maybe it's a half wall, or an interior wall that's not being cut for some reason. We're seeing the top of the wall. I mean, typically when we see the walls, we see them as cut. But these numbers here, in this case 2 and 10, are referenced back into that line weights. And we can manipulate, we can change the line weights here for that. So we can say, well, that actually should be 5 for cut. And if we hit apply, we see the line weight gets thinner. So you actually have like two settings, which makes sense, right? Rather than coming here and painfully typing in, 0.01 inches, you do that all in the settings for what does 5 mean, or 6 mean, or 7 mean. And then you change those here, okay? Now, this is what's nice about this. So if I have 10 and I hit apply and I hit OK, this is set up for 1 inch equals a foot. So under my line weights, 1 inch equals a foot, 10 is 0.1350 inches. As we go down to, say, 1/16 of an inch, it reduces automatically. So if I come here now and change this to, 1/16 of an inch equals a foot, you see what happens. It's still 10 is too much. All right. So in this case, it's referencing 10. So if you wanted to have such a thick line of 10 for the 1 inch equals a foot, we would have to come into here and understand 10. We need to tone this down at 1/16 of an inch, because I probably should be using something like 3 or 4. But if I tone this down, now it tones it down. So I'm controlling it. So we have, it's sort of a balance. I'm controlling it in 2 different spots. So I came in at 10 and said, so probably rather than doing what I did there, you're better off pumping up. If we're going to use 5, if 5 makes more sense, we pump up 5 at the 1 inch equals a foot. So if you're going to start messing with these things, you better have some logic of how you're doing it. You probably, if things are reading fine by default, but you just want to increase. So if we do let me go all the way, not too far back. So at 1 inch equals a foot, I don't like the line weight there. So I can go check and see what line weight is being used for my wall. And that's a 5. So I can then come here to my line weights and go to 5 and increase this within 5 for 1 inch equals a foot. Now, obviously that's probably too much. Maybe that's better. Okay, so we can start to fine tune this. The other thing is with this wall, we have additional lines. We have interior lines. So within these objects, if we go to wall, we have common edges. These are the common edges. So if we want those to read a little heavier, we can increase it. In this case, we don't see much of a difference. Let's make it a little bit more dramatic. And you can test. If you're never sure, what I like to do is I like to change the colors. And okay, that is the line. So we can manipulate colors. Say, okay, let's go with 4. Okay, I like 4. That looks right. And we say, let's check what that looks at a 1/4 inch. Ooh, that got too heavy. Right? So maybe now 4 at 1/4 inch I keep it the same, and that looks better. Just starting to make some, how we start to adjust this. The next thing is we get patterns, right? So this wall, if we go to edit and we go to edit structure, if we preview this wall has different finishes. So in this case, the outside finish is masonry block. If we click on the material, the masonry, the cut pattern, there is a specific cut pattern, there's a surface pattern. So we can change these. So this is really important, especially if you're doing floor plans and we don't like what the floor is looking like for wood finish. We can adjust that or turn it off, give it a color. We can come here and adjust the pattern and change the spacing, okay, based on what we want to do, or change the angle. So you can customize these. Typically they're set up properly, right? But if you want to customize them, we know how to. They're located here. And we can duplicate hat patterns and make additional patterns, or we can say no pattern, right? So if I say no pattern, there's no pattern there now. And that becomes important, especially if we're doing maybe a floor. And then we spend a lot of time and do this floor, but then we want to come in and we want to edit the structure, and we have this tile. So you can see right now the surface finish is none, but hey, we want to give a pattern. So we can start with maybe just the original installation and say duplicate and call it tile. And then our spacing can be 12 inches. And my thing must be very small or something. Let's adjust that. Oops. All right, we're starting to see it now. Okay, so if we just want to get certain patterns that are happening, let's go back. Sorry, let's go back and look at this again. Oh. So another thing that we can, there's actually, yeah, we can align stuff, but we can actually, so there's specific patterns that we have loaded here. We can get into customizing, making our own patterns. If you guys want to look into that, it's not that difficult of a thing to do. Has anybody ever made their own hatches in AutoCAD? Yeah, similar concept. Okay, so it's working off of the same type of hatch fills. All right. Yes.
And also, you can customize the hatches of the tiles as well, right?
Yeah.
The way you want them custom.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, if you duplicate, you can make things your own, your own name, but then cut it the way you want. But take care, don't overdo it. We also have, these things appear in shaded view. Once we get into realistic view, things change in what's being shown. So there's a whole other library. So it's drawing on materiality, as you can see. We're not doing these things, but just so you guys have a heads up. But I think also, I know we talked about shadowing and the effects of shadowing, especially when we rasterize this image out. But there's a lot of customization we can do with shading as well, like what are they shaded. So I think it's something you guys can start doing to sort of customize your floor plans. It's what you guys are printing at that scale is probably really small. So what you want to do is probably do like a swatch. What computer? Let me pull up your computers. What's your number? 21. So let's pull 20. Are they in order? No, that would make too much sense. So when you guys are testing this, I mean, typically when you zoom in, you actually see what's happening, right? So, if you're having trouble with getting walls doing what they're supposed to, that's one thing. But But you can also test this, right? So if you print this out, and again, always do this as a PDF, in my opinion. We can select our sheets. Do you have a lot of sheets? Which one is this? Is 03? Yep. Remember, you got to do this. This is like finding the.
They should put 24 by 72 here.
Yep.
Okay.
And always
11 by 72.
short. Yeah, do it. Always print out the real scale. So I'm recording this for. You just throw it on the desktop. Or I'll put it in here. That's fine. Because you have shading, that's fine. It'll rasterize it. And although it'll tell you to save it again. So what I like to do, not that I like, you can attempt to print this out here. We can definitely look at this and see what's happening. We don't have the full version, I guess. This is just reader, so it's a little. But you can see, the line weights are actually looking pretty good. But if you're not convinced, if we go to File Print, there's a couple things. We'd want to do actual size. Okay. The only problem with doing actual size, it's just going to give you. It's going to give you whatever it gives you. In the sense of a swatch. It's hard to pick where to swatch that. So the other option is we go to our other piece of software, Illustrator. This is the way I do it. And we don't have to do much other than edit it and change the artboard real fast. So, of course I'm opening. Am I opening on your machine or my machine? Yeah, on yours? Okay, can't remember. It's taking a little. So we can open up that. Just located in here. So once we open it in here, it's going to open probably all whacked out anyways. Just freaking out. So what I can do is edit artboard. Sorry, it's having a hard time. Ah. Wow, sorry guys, it's really, this might be just too much for, no, it's just too much for the computer. And what I can do is, I can crop, so what I can do is make a new, so I'm making a new window here. So this is a new artboard. It's hard for me to see where I'm picking. So let's say I just want to see that corner. Sorry guys, I'm losing the mouse. Nope. Well, you're able to make this. You can either crop it or get it to 11 by 17. This is actually the artboard size. If it's in points, we can switch the units to inches. So we see it in inches, so we can make it 11 by 17. And you can move it and then print that at 1:1. And then you'll get an idea of what it looks like as a swatch. Okay? You know, because eventually we're going to print on the big printer, and you don't want to spend $10 and throw it away because it came out all wrong. I mean, it's a good. You can see it on the screen. I mean, Adobe is pretty good at, you know, what you see, what you get. But sometimes it's still not good enough. All right. Questions on this?